at this time. So again, welcome everyone. If you want to be able to register for future webinars or be able to watch previous webinar recordings, they are available at www.geglouisiana.com. Today, we have an awesome session for you. This session is called Remote Learning with Pear Deck. And in such a time as this, I have always been like a real big Pear Deck fan. And I've known Nick for a while. And so it is a pleasure to have Nick here today to be able to show us some things and to be able to introduce all of you and get some free PD on Pear Deck and being able to use Pear Deck for remote learning. So Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thanks for having me. Good to see some faces, even new faces. Any faces right now are good faces.
Awesome, man. And so can you tell us about your role at Pear Deck, and then we'll jump into the conversation, or we'll jump into the PD.
Sure. So more or less, I'm just a professional development leader and trainer on Pear Deck. So I'm training schools and districts on how to bring Pear Deck into their classrooms, whether or not that's a virtual classroom or digital classroom, or whether that's the physical classroom. I think a lot of folks are preparing for flexible learning in the fall. And so I'm gonna lead this session through the lens of using Pear Deck to connect students regardless of where that instruction is happening, if it's online or in the physical classroom. So just a little bit about me. I'm coming from Kansas City, Missouri, and I've been with Pear Deck since about the beginning. So if you've met folks from Pear Deck, if you've stopped by at ISTE or emailed, I saw Brady Dalton in the house from Texas, and Courtney Watson as well. If you know Pear Deck, you might know me. So if we've met before, hello again, and nice to meet everyone else as well.
And quick question here before you get started, Nick. We have people from Turkey, from Argentina,
Awesome.
Paramabo, Oman, and just Malaysia, China, Mexico, all over the world who are joining us, Kuwait. And so before you get into the session and everything, I just wanted to see if Pear Deck is available for them as well. And then we can jump right into it. Or if you want to cover that during your PD session, that's fine as well.
Great. So let's just cover that really early on. The short answer is yes, Pear Deck is available to anyone and everyone with a Google or Microsoft email domain.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's just go ahead and kick things off. Thanks again, Wiley, for coordinating this. Very excited to be here today. I do a very poor job of talking and checking the chat at the same time. I get sidetracked and fumble. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat as we go. But I'm going to make sure that at the end of the session, we leave at least 5 or 10 minutes for dedicated Q&A at the end. So if you have something that you want to hold till the end, I'll encourage you to do that. We'll answer every question. And then I also want to be upfront and tell you that everyone will get an email from me today just for joining the session. That's going to include some additional resources for helping you to get started, pre-recorded webinars, and then also some additional webinar opportunities to sign up. So don't just feel like the next 40 minutes is all the time that you have with Pear Deck. You're going to get some additional resources from us as well. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. I won't make you look at me for too long because you can see me right here. But like I said, you're all going to get an email from me. It's pretty easy to remember. It's just nick@peardeck.com. So you'll be able to track me down moving forward. And then that's my Twitter handle. If you're into that sort of thing, you'll know where to find me on the Twitter sphere as well. As far as an agenda goes for today, I'm going to model building a Pear Deck lesson to kick things off. I'm going to take like 5 or 10 minutes to do that because I really think that that's a best practice in getting started with Pear Deck, which is don't reinvent the wheel. Don't start from scratch. Just take 5 or 10 minutes before a lesson, or maybe you're a professional development leader. Maybe you're a trainer within your school. So take 5 or 10 minutes before a training and take an existing lesson and make it interactive. And it's really as easy as 5 or 10 minutes. So for those of you who are coming here today and have never used Pear Deck before, it's really less of something new, and it's a way to take something that you're already doing or using, Google Slides or PowerPoint, and making it interactive for attendees. So whether those attendees are students or teachers or parent teachers within a parent-teacher conference, whatever it is, it allows you to make your lessons engaging and interactive for your audience. We're going to look at Pear Deck knowing that that flexible learning in the fall is a scenario that a lot of us will probably find ourselves in. We're going to be looking at Pear Deck from two lenses, both a synchronous live instruction. So what we're doing right now, we're on a virtual call. Up until remote learning, Pear Deck was, for the most part, synchronous. It was live, direct instruction, full group instruction in the class. With this flip to remote learning, we had a lot of teachers asking us about self-paced learning for students to go through lessons asynchronously on their own pace. So we're going to look at both of those today together, because Pear Deck is something that can be used both ways. And then for the majority of the session today, I'm going to have you all signed in as students, so you can really touch it and feel it and see what it looks like to participate within a Pear Deck lesson. But I'll also be showing you the teacher side along the way, because that's super important. For you to know what you're going to see as a teacher and the data that you're going to get behind the interaction. And then finally, we're going to end right where we started. So we're going to end with all of you getting the steps to get started on building your first lesson, hopefully like this afternoon. That's really how easy it is. So as far as step number one, which is getting started with Pear Deck and building that first Pear Deck lesson, I'm going to exit out of my full screen here, and you can see that I've just been in Google Slides this whole time. Knowing this is the GEG group, this is probably a very familiar environment for a lot of you all. Hopefully that's what you're using to build a lot of your instructions, lessons, activities, whatever that is. If we have anybody in the house who's like, whoa, hold up, I'm a PowerPoint fan, I'm in the GEG, but I'd prefer to use PowerPoint, or my lesson's already built in PowerPoint, that's totally fine. To address Wiley's question early on about, what does it take to use Pear Deck? Who can use Pear Deck? To use Pear Deck, all you need is a Google domain or a Microsoft domain. The only difference between the two is that Pear Deck is an add-on within Google Slides. So I'm going to model the Google Slides. That's just what I'm most familiar with. And when in Rome, when in the GEG group, we're going to use Google Slides. PowerPoint, they call them add-ins. So Microsoft and Google are really creative when they're stealing from each other. So add-ons, add-ins, Google Slides, I'm going to come up to my add-ons. And if you've never used Pear Deck before, you're not going to see the add-on. And so you'll go into Get Add-ons. And then shameless plug for Pear Deck, we're going to be right there at the top. We're the second most downloaded add-on in the world. So you'll see us right there at the top. You can't miss it. So don't worry about trying to do what I'm doing right now on your screens. If you got a couple windows going, I'm gonna spend 5 or 10 minutes here, and then I'm gonna have you join in and then give you this after the fact. But just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show for a second, because this is gonna be super engaging in a moment, and I'm gonna keep everybody on your toes. This will not be a sit and get session, I promise you that. So step number one is just to simply open up the add-on. So I've gone in and gotten it, and once I have it, then I can go in and actually just open that up. So pretty darn easy. A click of a button, and now I have Pear Deck opened directly within Google Slides. So imagine that this is a lesson that I already have built. Well, now Pear Deck gives me this sidebar on the right-hand portion of my screen to do what Pear Deck does best, which is step number 2, adding interactive slides from our library and creating your own custom questions. So these are these formative assessments, these checks for understanding, these layers of student engagement to go through and put those moments within your existing lesson. So the easiest place to get started is that template library. It's just right there at the top. You can't miss it. Big blue button, our template library. And within the template library, the best thing about it and the easiest place to get started, because we've already done a lot of the work for you up front in building out hundreds of prompts and templates for you to choose from. So for those of you who have never heard of Pear Deck before until you just showed up today, I would really encourage you to take an existing lesson and use our template library to maybe add in a bell ringer or a warm up to existing lesson, or maybe end the lesson with a reflection or exit ticket. Different learning development strategies of critical thinking, social-emotional learning, more important today, now more than ever, and then individual subject areas as well. So I'm just going to start us off with, let's do 2 warm-up questions that I'm gonna ask the group. So imagine that within my class, I wanted to give everybody that old school thumbs up, thumbs down that we've probably all participated in, probably use in your classroom as well. So the thumbs up, thumbs down, how are we doing? How are we feeling? Are you ready to move on? But we're going to do this digitally. So we're going to give all our students that ability to give us that thumbs up, thumbs down digitally. Now, don't worry, there wasn't homework assigned today, so nobody freak out. This is just a prompt. This is just a template that Pear Deck builds. I can always edit this prompt to be anything I would like it to be. So I'm going to ask, how familiar are you with Pear Deck? So this is like a check for prior knowledge, a check for prior understanding. A lot of these prompts, a lot of these templates are not grade level or subject area specific. So the thumbs up, thumbs down, how familiar are you with XYZ topic, whatever you're talking about that day in class. These are very repeatable prompts that you can ask over and over again. Similar to this, very high level, what do you wonder about today's topic? Encouraging students to think broadly. I could take this prompt and totally change it altogether and say, what was your biggest challenge during, see, I told you I was very poor at typing, looking at text and talking at the same time. Challenge during remote learning. All right, so what was your biggest challenge during remote learning? Topical, that's why we're here, right? So those are just two quick warm-up examples that are built right within Pear Deck. And finally, I mentioned social emotional learning, super important right now. A lot of these templates within Pear Deck were being used as standalone activities during second semester when schools closed. Specifically, like this stress check, I've heard a lot of teachers that were just using Pear Deck to just simply check in with students and seeing how they were doing at home. How would you explain, how would you rate your learning environment at home? Is there anything that I can do to help you? Some of these practices that might be pretty easy to do in the physical classroom when you've got the students just right next to you. Pear Deck allows you to meet them where they have to be met, which is at home. Which is at home from their device. So just giving a little stress check here. And now more than ever, there are probably more stressors out there than there ever have been. So just giving you that ability to do that. So I'm going to start there because I said this is like a 5 or 10 minute thing. We've opened the Pear Deck add-on. We've added interactive slides from our template library. For those of you who have used Pear Deck before, you know this, but you don't have to use our templates. They are certainly the easiest place to get started, but you can build out your own slides from scratch, and that's just asking students questions. So if I had our agenda and I wanted you to answer a multiple choice question around, what was your most, what are you looking forward to most about our agenda, then I could make that a multiple choice question. And then Pear Deck's going to ask me for some prompts to be able to ask my students that multiple choice question from here. Last piece. I know this is GG, Louisiana. I remember Louisiana was the first state that schools really started to close just for the summer. And I was on a webinar where a lot of folks from Louisiana were asking, hey, how can I add audio to a slide? Well, when schools first closed, we didn't have that ability. We worked really hard, really fast. And a couple weeks later, you now have the ability to add audio to a slide. So let's say that you want to come in and give your students additional color, additional context, commentary on a slide, or simply you just want to say hello to them, like just them hearing your voice and feeling connected to you and your classroom could be very important. So let's just go in and add some audio to this slide. I can do it right within Pear Deck without leaving the Google Slides environment, upload it from my device or record it. Hey class, this is your teacher, Nick. Today we're going to be using Pear Deck. If you could answer the next 5 slides by using the clicker on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, give it your best shot. We're going to come back together at the end of the week. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. I miss you all so much. Hope to see you soon. All right, so now I can either delete that to start over, resume, or save. Once it's saved, I can listen back to it. Hey class, this is your teacher, Nick. And don't you hate hearing your own voice, right? Okay, so now I can add that to the slide. And once that's added to the slide, as a teacher and a student, I know, hey, there's audio included in this. So in second semester, I had some phenomenal use cases of this, like kindergarten teachers who, were reading books to students and they could hear his or her voice. Heard from English language learners, I'm at home and maybe I speak Spanish, but the lesson's in English and I don't want to have like a translate tool. I can just read that text aloud, or my teacher can read that text aloud for me. Early learners, younger learners, low to no vision learners. There's just tons of use cases out there we're excited to have this included within Pear Deck, both for the physical classroom in the fall and for remote learning as well.
Quick question, Nick, do you mind if I just ask a quick, is there a
Yeah.
time limit? A question came in, I'm monitoring the chat for you. Is there a time limit on that?
I think it's an hour, but it's actually an hour per slide. So if you're talking for more than an hour on one slide, you're probably talking too much. So that's like a long way of me saying no, there's no limit. Awesome. So, okay. So let's stop talking about it. Let's be about it. I've been here longer than I promised, that 5 or 10 minutes. So we've opened up our Pear Deck add-on, step number 1. We've added interactive slides. We use the template library to do that. And we also added in some audio. And then the third and final step is to present your lesson. So to start your lesson within Pear Deck, you need to click the big green button up here in the top right-hand corner that says Start Lesson. So everything you've seen up to this point has been very familiar. It's been Google Slides. You haven't really learned anything new now up until this point. Now this is when things do get different, because this is when I'm going to ask you all to join in. All right. So as my students, I'm going to ask you to join into this session. Now Pear Deck asks me as the teacher, how do you want to set up this lesson? Do you want this to be a student-paced lesson where students can go through asynchronously at their own time? It's a great example of a flipped classroom, flipped learning, assigning lessons as homework, or posting this to your LMS, you know, throughout the week. Or do you want this to be an instructor-paced activity where you're connected with your students in real time, virtually like we are right now, or in the classroom where you're up in front of the room and they're participating? So you get to pick and choose how you want to set this up. Once you pick, you can always change it later. So you can toggle between the two. So that's that idea of flexible learning, flexible instruction, regardless of if you're all together or you're not. You're able to decide. So I'm going to choose for this to be instructor paced because I've got your attention for a little bit, and a little bit later on, I'm gonna flip it over to you guys as students. So this is where I need everyone's participation. I told you this was not going to be a sit and get. This was not going to be a death by PowerPoint. I'm going to keep everybody on your toes over summer break. Make sure you're following along, paying attention. So on a new device or a new window in your screen, I want you just to get to a web browser. The easiest way for you to do that. So if the easiest way for you to do that is a tablet or a cell phone that's sitting on your desk, or if you want to open up a couple of windows within your single screen, if you've got a couple monitors, that's like the best case scenario. But just find a web browser, so Safari, Google Chrome, whatever it is that you're using, and follow these instructions that you see on my screen, which is joinpd.com. So go to joinpd.com. When you make it there, you're going to see that we're asking for a code, and I am sharing that code with you. So PGIXR, purple grapes, excerpt raisins. PGIXR. So very quickly, we have 20 students joined in, so pretty quick and easy. You'll notice you all signed in with a Google email. That was because I launched this session with Google. For any of the Microsoft folks out there, if you launch this in PowerPoint, your students can sign in using Microsoft. If you want them to sign in with an email other than those two, you can choose that setting. And if we have any early learner teachers out there, early learner educators out there, you can have students sign in without an email at all. So if you want students to sign in without having to select an email or a password, you can do that. Now, while we're getting everybody signed in, I want to show off a couple of things. For those of you out there who are using Google Classroom, you can invite your class right here from Pear Deck. So I can go in, pick that section, and post this assignment directly to my class and roster as an assignment. Now, we're not in a class together, so I can't really show you that, but that is just synced right within Google Classroom. For those of you who are using Canvas and Schoology, we're partnering with Canvas and Schoology right now to integrate with them for the fall semester, so that we integrate seamlessly between those two LMSs. Say you're using an LMS that I haven't mentioned so far, you can always share and give students a link to join in. So you could like post this link on your classroom website or email them to your students. So I'm going to post this in the chat. I'm going to say join us here. So join us here, and then I have that code. Now I'll show you what happens here. I'm going to do this on my screen. I've got my code. My teacher sent me the code, And because I had that URL, I don't have to enter in that 5-digit code. I'm just seamlessly dropped right into the session. And the first thing I see, rather than signing in with Google or Microsoft, is just that social emotional learning check-in that we give on a repeatable basis. We call that classroom climate. It again just encourages some repeatable social emotional learning to check in with your students. So the last thing that I'm going to mention here, super important, is your teacher dashboard. So your teacher dashboard, this is your superpower as a teacher within Pear Deck. And I was sneaky and I pulled this up behind the scenes so you all didn't see it when I pulled it up. But Pear Deck tells you what this is, and it tells you, keep this off your window to project student responses and keep them anonymous. So to keep them anonymous, it's a view just for you. Open it up on a separate device like this gentleman has right here. So maybe in your classroom, you have this pulled up on a tablet, or you can just have this pulled up in another window like I have right now. So in another window, I'm seeing this view and I'm hiding it off my screen for my students. So my students, you guys don't get to see that. Now my dashboard so far tells me that there is 78 students joined in. Hopefully nobody here has a 78 student class, but you can see that Pear Deck handles unlimited number of students. I think I saw at ISTE one time, there was a session with 1,200 participants joined in. So an unlimited number of students. Right now what I'm seeing is my students' email and name, which is just pulled from you all simply signing in. I'm also seeing some students that are offline and already aren't following along and paying attention. And then I see that little social emotional learning check-in to know that Paul, they're feeling good today. And then Nick, he's feeling a little down. He's a little sad today. He's not. That's just an example. It'll be a good example later on. So let's go ahead and just kick things off. So that's my teacher dashboard behind the scenes. The code is always going to be up there in the top right-hand corner for me to pop out if I have a student that comes in late to class or gets bumped off Wi-Fi. I'm sure those two things never happen. But if they ever did, you'll see those right up there in the top right-hand corner. So because we're all signed in, now I can control your screens as we go through this lesson. So instead of relying on all of you, my students, to be on the right particular slide in Google Slides, I'm now advancing you through that. So now we're going to be talking about remote learning with Pear Deck, and here's the agenda class that we're going to go through when we go through together. So just on the most basic level, Pear Deck allows you to take your screen or your projector in the classroom and push that out to student devices wherever they are, to their desks or to their homes. Now, what Pear Deck is known for is those layers of engagement. So not just like, here's the info, sit and get, it's in front of you at your fingertips, but those prompts, those checks for prior knowledge, those checks for understanding. And so in this case, we asked, how familiar are you with Pear Deck? So how familiar are you with Pear Deck? So now take a look at your student screen. So that separate screen that you have opened up, or that separate device that you have opened up. And now I've given everyone a dot to tell me how familiar they are with Pear Deck. So we have a large audience here, so we have a lot of dots, and we have 80 to be exact. And I'm going to go ahead and show these responses. So on my screen that I'm sharing, you can see all those dots as they're moving around, moving across that spectrum. So I can see we've got a lot of people having way too much fun with their dots, moving those all around like crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and lock the screen so I can get the attention of my class, and I can do that in class or in that remote learning environment as well. And that's just my ability to being able to lock those screens to where everybody's locked into their response. So as a class, we can see that there's a wide range of responses, right? So we've got a lot of people, beginners. We've got folks who are very familiar with Pear Deck, but maybe not Pear Deck for remote learning, and then everywhere in between. But this is always going to be anonymous for the students. So from the student perspective, from the classroom perspective, you're not going to know the students that are like newbies to Pear Deck. You don't want to call them out and put them on blast, but you're going to be able to see that, but behind the scenes. So let's do our other question here, which was, what was your biggest challenge during remote learning? Now, instead of just locking the screens without warning, I want to give everybody 1 minute to respond. So now I'm going to give my whole classroom 1 minute to respond and tell me, what was your biggest challenge during remote learning? when you put that timer on the clock, that's when things get really quiet, in class, out of class, but just giving everybody that time to process. And I know we've got plenty of time left on the clock, but I'm going to go ahead and start showing these responses so you can see. I won't say that I'm excited or happy to see a lot of similar responses, but there are a lot of responses around keeping students engaged, consistent student engagement, engaging students, specifically special education students, student participation, engaging every student, lack of response. So again, I'm not happy to see that that was some of the struggles that people were having. But that is certainly a few of the things that Pear Deck can help with as far as giving every single student a voice. And I used to say Pear Deck does a really good job of giving every student a voice and meeting them where they expect to be met. But now in this reality, you're not meeting them where they expect to be met. You're meeting them literally where they have to be met. You're meeting them where they have to be met, which is at home. So as you all have been responding, on my end, I was seeing some of those responses and I was calling out a few of those responses, but we have all of those together. And I know that I've actively engaged and heard from 64 students. So 64 students just gave me a response. They gave me some participation, and out of my 83 attendees. Last one here. Let's do or I'll do one more after this, but let's do our quick stress check. And I'm going to make our stress check just totally anonymous. So this isn't going to be one that I even show responses, but I'm going to give my students the ability to come in and tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? So I'm signed in as a student over here just so you can see what that would look like. But remember, Pear Deck is always anonymous from the classroom perspective, even if you show responses. But on a question like this, you might want to keep all responses totally anonymous even. So totally anonymous, not even share those. It's up to you whether or not you want to show or hide responses at any point. And that's just my button down here to show or hide responses. And then I just glanced down in the chat. So I saw that lock screens, if you put a timer on lock screens, you just hold that down for just a second. And then Pear Deck's going to give you some pre-canned times to ask, how long you want to give your students to respond. All right, last one here, guys, and I promise to turn it around and show you the good stuff, the teacher dashboard where all the data is. So we talked about synchronous live versus student paced. So tell me, in your classroom, were you more of a synchronous live doing webinars or Zoom calls together, or were you using more asynchronous lessons that you were assigning to students? So you can just tell me now on your end. I'll say that I was both. Go ahead and say that we were both. All right, so this is a great time for me to pause and show you what I've been seeing on my end. Now that teacher dashboard that launched for me automatically when I launched Pear Deck can always be found on the bottom right-hand corner. We have 3 little dots. There's always good stuff behind 3 little dots, but behind our 3 little dots is where I can toggle on student pace mode. It's also where I can turn on that teacher dashboard. I can turn on the dashboard in a new window like I have, or actually another device as well, like that gentleman from before. So if I wanted to be mobile in my classroom and walk around and control student screens and ask questions from my iPad, I could do that. Also not specific to an iPad. So any tablet, any device, cell phones work great. So because I have this teacher dashboard open behind the scenes, that's where I have all of my students and my roster from here. That's where I can also pull out and see Bobby, Elaine, Jaslyn, Kirsten, Peggy, who answered A. Our 6 students who have answered A, now 7. I can see my 24 students who have answered B, my 35 students that have answered C, and I can see my 16 students who aren't paying attention and following along anymore. So in remote learning, knowing who those students are who haven't started the lesson yet, or maybe who got tripped up on a specific question, you're seeing these as these come in real time, in actual real time. So I've been sneaky this whole time, hiding these from you guys. So when you all were participating and telling me how familiar you were with Pear Deck, I actually knew that Adrian, it's probably first time for Adrian seeing Pear Deck. I knew that Cesar was new to Pear Deck, but maybe had seen it before in the past. And then Wendy over here, very familiar with Pear Deck, probably using it all the time in her classroom. So I was able to get that check for prior knowledge, check for prior understanding on the fly in real time behind the scenes. Now, all of these look a little bit different on the back end here. So what was your biggest challenge during remote learning? I see all my students' names behind the responses. Now, I chose to show these, so I trusted you all to not say anything inappropriate off track, but if we've got any middle school teachers in the room, you probably don't have that same confidence. So I've chosen to show responses. So at any point I can show and hide responses, and you'll notice behind the scenes then that's being shown on my quote unquote virtual projector. Now, if I wanted to pick and choose responses, maybe specific to responses that Pear Deck can help with. So Tally had a student participation, engaging special education students, keeping students engaged and excited about participation. Melanie had a comment about consistent engagement. As a district, we had 75%, but only 30 was consistent student engagement. On average, when you use Pear Deck to launch a session, you're going to get on average 95% student participation. That's a worldwide national average over the last 5 years. If you simply click start presentation, click the big green button that says start lesson with Pear Deck, you'll get on average 95% student engagement within your lessons. So because I've starred a few of the responses, when I go to show those responses, then those are only going to be the responses that are going to be shown. So you get to pick and choose along the way what you show and what you don't. So finally, let's go to our stress check real quick, and I want to model how you might use a new feature of Pear Deck, which we just rolled out a couple of weeks ago. We tried to sneak it in at the end of the school year, but if you're out of school and you haven't been into Pear Deck since, this is gonna be new to you for you to see. So our student stress check, I had these overlaid at first. So at first I had these all overlaid on a spectrum to see where everyone fell. So this is this one single view where I can see how stressed out all my students are. And I can hover over here to the right to see that Nick Park is super stressed out. He's an 11 out of 10. Now I want to break these out into a grid now. So instead of looking at these responses all laid out on top of each other, I want to look at these individualized responses. So in addition to adding audio, hey, can we add audio? The second highest feature request that we got at Pear Deck was, how can I give students feedback? I'm not with them in the class. They're not right next to me to be able to say, fantastic answer, or can you give me a little more? Can you summarize why you answered the way that you did? You couldn't do that up until a couple weeks ago. So now we give you the ability to go in and not just like star responses, which is highlighting and showing those, but also giving feedback. So giving student feedback. So it's this little talk bubble right here. So Nick has told me that he's super stressed out. And as the teacher, I want to go in and I want to give Nick some feedback. So I'm going to do that by clicking that talk bubble. Pear Deck is going to ask me, okay, hey, what do you want to tell Nick? And that could be anything, like I said. So that could just be fantastic answer. We always give some prompts, regular specific feedback to help students develop a growth mindset. And in this case, since this is just an emotional check-in, I could just say, hey, Nick, what's going on? How can I help you? All right. And I'm going to send that feedback to Nick now. All right. So now I've sent that and posted that feedback to Nick. Now I am signed in as Nick right now, so you can see that, so I can model that response. I've been hiding that back here. I get a little notification that says, hey, you have some new feedback. I have that same talk bubble down here that now has a pinging me and give me a notification. And then that's a response from my teacher to be able to see what he or she had to say and interact with the teacher from there, right within Pear Deck. You never leave. You don't have to email that feedback out. You're doing that all right within the app. So hopefully what you're seeing so far as we've been through, I mentioned it earlier, but really the idea of Pear Deck overall is to to give every single student a voice. And so this is our mission, and internally as a team, give every single student a voice. So not just the students that you hear from on a daily basis, that you hear from in the classroom who sit in the front row and speak up and participate every single day, but also the students who don't for whatever reason. Really that idea of meeting students where they have to be met now, which is through technology in their homes. And then the beauty of that is that as you're hearing from more and more students through Pear Deck, you're building up more and more insights into students' learning, or data. So every single time a student participates, that becomes a data point now that you have moving forward. So two things. Thank you, Dave. That's amazing. I do a poor job of glancing down at the chat, but I just I got lucky and I glanced down at a good time. Two things I want to show you that have been real hits for remote learning and accessibility in general. One I already showed, which was adding audio, but along the same lines of adding audio is Immersive Reader. And for those of you who haven't heard of Immersive Reader, prepare yourselves, your mind is about to be blown. Immersive Reader is a tool by Microsoft. So I know we were picking on Microsoft and Google earlier, but this is a tool by Microsoft that was built for accessibility, specifically for students with dyslexia, but now it reaches far further than just that. What it allows students to do is edit and adapt text to their own individualized learning needs. So I want to show you all exactly what that means, and you guys can do it on your end. Imagine that you're a student and you've received a lesson from your teacher. Anytime there is text on that slide, so this slide happens to have text, what Immersive Reader gives your students the ability to do, it puts this into their own hands, is to edit and adapt this text to their own individualized learning needs. So you'll see that Immersive Reader icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It's the open book and speaker. If you weren't able to join into Pear Deck, or you've gotten lost along the way, no worries. I'm going to model this here real quick for you guys. So right out of the gates, what Immersive Reader will do for your students is read the text aloud.
Click on the Immersive Reader icon on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
Okay, English language learners, early learners, SPED students, any students that might need some additional assistance reading the text aloud at home. Now, where things get really cool, really fun, are some of the preferences up here, where we can do some text preferences, where you can see I've already taken this and added some of my own text preferences, whether that's like the font or the text size, or line spacing. Also some grammar options as well. So identifying the syllables, identifying different parts of the speech. And I added labels to mine for students that might be colorblind. Red and green aren't going to mean much, so you can just add that V next to your verbs. And then finally, my favorite, and I always go down a rabbit hole here, is translation. So it looks like the last time I was in here, I was trying to learn some Egyptian Arabic. So as an English language learner, regardless of what my language is, I could go in and translate that entire document into that language and still be able to read that aloud. Okay, so that was a little Arabic. One I'm a little bit more familiar with, to know that it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, is some Spanish Mexico, to go in and read that aloud.
Haga clic en el icono de lector inmersivo en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla.
Maybe I'm trying to learn Spanish, so I actually want to slow the voice speed down a little bit, and I'd actually like to hear from a male instead.
Pantalla. Sabemos que los estudiantes con diferencias de aprendizaje enfrentan desafíos reales cuando se trata de...
Okay, I told you I would go down a rabbit hole on this every time, but reading that text aloud, translating the text, and then even down to the word as well. So
Pantalla. Screen.
And then a picture dictionary as well. So simply just launching a session in Pear Deck gives your students all of these Immersive Reader tools. All right, real quick, we're running a little short on time here. So I promised that I was going to flip my classroom and turn it over to you guys so you could see Pear Deck from that asynchronous learning environment. Well, we just happened to record some audio together. You saw me do that as the teacher. When there is audio included in a slide, you'll see you're notified. There's some headphones up there. To play that, it's right down where that Immersive Reader was as well. So let's go ahead and do this together. Follow my instructions that I'm going to give you. We'll spend 60 seconds on this, but listen to my instructions as the teacher and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Hey class, this is your teacher, Nick. Today we're going to be using Pear. If you could answer the next 5 slides by using the clicker on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, give it your best shot. We're going to come back together at the end of the week. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. I miss you all so much. Hope to see you soon. Okay, great. So now I'm telling my class, hey, you can go through. This is self-paced. This is flipped learning. You can go through now throughout the week. To turn that on, it's those bottom 3 little dots. I saw somebody in the chat call them the snowman. That's fantastic. I'm going to steal that for the next webinar. I'm going to turn on student paced mode. So that's right where I get to the dashboard is where I can turn on student paced mode. Pear Deck gives you a notice that your students now can go through the slides at their own pace. So now for you guys as students, I want you to click through these next few slides and just give it your best shot here. So let's take 60 seconds to go through and answer these prompts. That's hilarious, Tyler. Okay, so I promised you 60 seconds. That was about it. We are in student pace mode now. So now I have an option to turn off student pace mode. I'm gonna do that because I want to get the attention of everybody again. I know you're all out having too much fun moving through the deck now. So I've stopped student pace mode. So now I've got everybody's attention, and we're right back where we were beforehand. Now, one of the things about Pear Deck that is really amazing is that although I flipped my classroom and we were doing asynchronous learning, for you, the teacher, the insights are still always real time. So as your students are working through a question, maybe throughout the week, on your teacher dashboard behind the scenes, you can see all of those responses as they're coming in live and in real time, to see the students that are struggling, to see the students that maybe haven't even started the lesson yet. That dashboard is still going to give you the real-time insights, even though the learning maybe isn't happening in real time, full group together. So I was watching along the way as you guys were moving through, seeing that we were doing pretty well on the first couple questions. We really struggled a little bit on graphing of x plus 1, but for the most part, we did pretty well. So quickly moving through here, I want to leave a little bit time for Q&A. I mentioned I'm going to send everybody some resources for getting started. 2 that I want to make sure I call out are some really quick, easy ways to learn more about Pear Deck. One of those being what we would call our help videos, quick tips. These are short, bite-sized 2 to 3 minute videos that are available for you to watch at your own pace. These are broken down. I know I mentioned, sorry for the whiplash here, guys. I know I mentioned that we have both the Google and Microsoft product. The quick tips are broken down by Microsoft and Google. So you have the option to pick which ones you want to watch. And then also, I will send you the option to sign up for some additional webinars as well. So we actually are offering this remote learning webinar every single day. So we offer this if you want to come back and watch another session of this, level up your training with Pear Deck. We offer about 5 daily training sessions. So they're all led by a member of our team to where you can come and learn more from there. So keep an eye out for those. And then I also saw some questions in the chat along the way as we were going through about, you know, hey, is this on the free version or is this on the paid version, and what's included in all those. Right before we jumped on the call, I told Wiley that in my follow-up email to all of you guys, I'm gonna send everybody an extended 90-day trial of the Pear Deck Premium. So all of the bells and whistles, that you'll have for a full 90 days, which will be, great for first semester. I encourage you to share that on with schools, with teachers in your schools and districts so they can have access as well. But that way there's no question around what's included and what's not. And just to get everybody up to speed a little bit, we actually gave Pear Deck away for free for the entire spring semester. Like the second school started to close. I remember setting up some schools in Taiwan very, very early on in the year. So we've actually given Pear Deck away for free for up until this point. And then if you want to continue on with it in the fall, then you'll have that link to click in my email, and you can take that link and forward it on as well. If you weren't able to sign in or join, just shoot me an email at nick@peardeck.com, and I'm posting my email in the chat. So you have that. If you miss signing in, I'll also give this link to Wiley so he has it as well. And Wiley just might share that on the full GG board so that everybody has access to that and make it really easy on y'all. All right, so as far as our agenda goes, I'm still going to leave 5 minutes for Q&A at the end, but I do want to, as promised, I want to leave everybody on the right track to getting started with Pear Deck. And so to do that, we're going to follow those 3 steps to get started. Now, I've linked those 3 steps on this screen that you're seeing right here. So I just muted some people. Sorry about that. I wasn't trying to be rude, but we just got a lot of us on here. So I've linked this right on your slides. You can click right on Make Your Lesson Interactive with the Power of Pear Deck. So Make Your Lesson Interactive with the Power of Pear Deck. If you click right on that link, I'll do it right now so you can see it. Then I'm going to place everybody in that very familiar environment that we started in, which was Google Slides. And you're going to have those 3 steps. I'm going to post this in the chat as well. So get started here. So you guys have already seen this. This isn't anything new. This isn't anything that we have to spend a ton of time on because I already modeled doing this, but I wanted to make sure that I did leave you guys with those 3 steps of making any lesson interactive with the power of Pear Deck. And real quick, just to go through those one more time, you're going to go into add-ons or add-ins and you're going to get it. Once you've got it, you're going to open it. Once it's open, you're going to do what Pear Deck does best, which is adding interactive slides to lessons. You're going to get started by using that template library that has well over 100 different places to start.
قومي بقى اغسليها ده عشان اخلص لك الكاس. بابا تعبان والله بشرب السيجاره. قومي يا بنت اغسليها قديم.
Sorry about that. Hold on, I'm grabbing them now.
I got it. Yep.
You got them.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. And then we will just go ahead and add those templates to the existing slide. And remember, don't just add the template, edit it and make it your own. So if you have your warm-up that you already use and ask with kids, maybe it's not think of a question your classmate might have. Maybe it's explain to your classmates who were absent yesterday what we learned. You can always edit those to make them your own.
Hold on one second. I'm going to mute everyone.
Thanks, Wiley. And then once you've added that slide, those slides, I always like to give out like a 3-slide challenge. The wheel or starting from scratch. Thanks, Wiley. But just taking an existing lesson and making it interactive. So just start with 3 slides. Don't do the 45 slide deck where every slide is engaging interactive. Just start with 3. And then once you have that 3rd and final step, it is an important step because if you just present your lesson with Google Slides, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to be a flat file. You do need to start lesson with Pear Deck. And then you're going to have those options there selected. So if I wanted to launch this on my LMS as an assignment, I would start this as a student-paced activity rather than launching live with my class. I get to pick and choose there from that. Okay, guys, so as promised, I'm going to leave some time for follow-up. When in doubt, when you're kind of wondering, hey, how do I get started with Pear Deck? Where do I go? take a look at your email because you're going to have those instructions from me. But when in doubt moving forward, just go to peardeck.com. This is always where you can reorient yourself to get started. You go to peardeck.com and log in as a teacher. And when you log in as a teacher at peardeck.com, you're going to see all the different things that you can do within Pear Deck. We actually only focused on one thing, which was Pear Deck for Google Slides, but we also offer pop-up activities, Pear Deck for vocabulary. And then once you start using Pear Deck more and more, you're going to see your previous lessons that you've given, and that's going to be the data. So that's going to be the data behind the responses that you always have with you moving forward to go back and access and review. So Wiley, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave my screen on the 3 steps. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Yes, if you would throw it back to me, if you'll stop sharing, I am going to share real quick because that was super awesome. But I am also going to be sharing that information via email with everyone who has both attended and then those who registered in our system as well, because that's the only way you can actually be here, right? So I am going to share my screen at this time, screen number 2. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. Can someone confirm with me if you can see that? Let me check that chat. All right. Yes, you can. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So really quick, we want to definitely thank Nick for being able to be here today, sharing those resources. And then he gave you some free stuff. That is the free premium access all fall. So we definitely want to thank Nick and Pear Deck for all that they are doing here and supporting us as educators as well. That is like super duper awesome. And I will also share that we have a few more professional development opportunities that are coming. One of them is actually happening on, I think that's Thursday, July 1st. We're doing a CS First session that one of the sponsors, MyPD 24/7, I'll be facilitating that for them on that date. I can't remember if that's me or if that's Tyler. But we'll be facilitating one of those for them on that date. And then also on Friday, we will also have another session on July 2nd. That's either Thursday or Friday. I'm getting, with this COVID-19 and homework and everything, or working at home, should I say, my days are kind of running together. So I need to double check my calendar there. But yes, preventing summer slide with asynchronous learning this week. I am going to facilitate that. And we had a couple of other Thursday. Yes, thank you, Tyler. Thursday. So yes, Thursday is this. And I just want to highlight some of the other really great, awesome PD that's coming. We have working together with to support our students. And that is actually a session from Sarah that is going to be, we want to invite some parents on that session as well. And yes, Mindy, that question that you just asked, can we, and Nick, you'll have to kind of correct me if I'm wrong here. Oh, there it is right there. He just answered it. Yes. So you can hold on to your upgrade until school starts. So basically, I think what he's saying is don't connect your work account, your G Suite for Education account, using the code that you'll get until closer to school. But in the meantime, I'm sure you can probably use it in practice on your personal account. So correct me if I'm wrong on that, Nick. Thank you so much. And then so I was saying that that working together session, we want to, you know, if you have parents in your area, we're going to have parents and teachers there so that we can discuss how we can support students together. Then Jessica is coming on how to start a new show, getting started with a new show. Then we have some more awesome sessions, 5 tips for instructional coaches. We didn't put the graphic on here, but Tyler is actually going to be doing, Tyler Colson is in the chat there as well. She's going to also be doing, yes, Nick, Jess is amazing as well. Yeah, we've got some great sessions here. And so Tyler is also going to be doing a session as well, but we'll add that onto the website too. And because we just got the date for that, but I can't remember it offhand. But 5 tips for instructional coaches. Then we have George, who's coming back as well to do another session dealing with 0 to artists with Google Drawings. And if you attended a session before, it is going to be like awesome. And then we've got Fred coming as well to do riding the Wakelet wave. If you want to get involved as well, you know, we're always open to everyone. We've got people from all over the world here today. If you want to present a session, you have some knowledge that you want to share, feel free to reach out and go to the website and submit that information. We had an, and then also if you need a certificate for today. I know some of you did a certificate. We had it, I didn't do all of the scripts correctly previously, but those, if you filled out a certificate for a previous session, those will be going out over the next 24 to 48 hours. But if you want a certificate for the session today, please feel free to go ahead and send that, go to this email. And if Tyler or wait, you know, I think I can grab it because she's manning the chat and answering questions, which I do appreciate. But I'm going to just drop this into the chat right now. And so if you go there, you can get your certificate. And then of course, all other information is available at that second website that is there as well. Okay. We do want to thank sponsors, MyPD 24/7, and then now we have StreamYard as a sponsor as well. So they are helping us to expand the ability to be able to get this information out to others. We kind of tested it today in the in the Google group, but we had a little glitch there. But Tyler's going to help me get that fixed as well. We're going to kind of discuss that. All right. So again, this is the information. Thank you again, Nick. And then there was a question, could you purchase individual licenses for Pear Deck? Yes, you can purchase an individual license. Nick did drop his email and everything there as well. I'm not sure of the exact process on that, but you may just be able to purchase it online. Oh, this webinar is not on the certificate. That might help. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for going there and letting me know that. Uh-oh, let me add that. I'm going to add that on in just a moment. So thank you for noticing that. Was that GEGLA certificate? Let me do that now before we jump off of the call. Are there any last questions here? Any additional questions that Nick can answer for you before we jump off of this specific call? Any last questions here while I add that title? Thank you again. Have a terrific day. Awesome. You have a terrific day as well. And this is webinar. It's going to be remote. Wait, we're just going to say using Pear Deck for distance learning, since that's what I have on the session. All right, so it should be there now. If you go to the certificate, it is there now. Maureen has a quick question there, Nick. That's the voice to text option for students. Did you want to address that real quick?
There's nothing within Pear Deck itself, the app, but you can use any dictation tools that work within a web browser. So whether that's like a Chromebook or a Mac, or if they students have an extension or add-on within their device to be able to do that, dictation, voice to text dictation will work within Pear Deck.
Yes, definitely. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Nick.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Well, he has given his email information. So if you would, if you have any final questions or anything, you can feel free to email him directly. This webinar will be posted soon and very soon onto the website. And that's it. Thank you all so much for your time today and attending here. And thank you, Nick and Pear Deck, for everything that you all are doing to support educators around the world.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Enjoy some well-deserved relaxation this summer. Everybody deserves it after that spring. So I appreciate you all.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Uh-oh, come on, in for all. Uh-oh. And why is it not doing it? There we go. Uh-oh. All right, so maybe I need to stop sharing first.